Dear students, in the third part of the course on Sociology of India, paper 2, we were looking into the challenges that Indian society is having in terms of civilization, state and society. The challenges were dealt with in three aspects, and they are communalism, secularism and nationalism. So far, we have discussed the first two aspects, which are communalism and secularism in the Indian context. In the present module, let us discuss secularism and communalism along with fundamentalism in Indian society and the challenges associated with it. While deliberating about communalism, the concept of fundamentalism is also to be explained, as the roots of both the concepts are related and the issues related to it are also similar in nature and character. They cause challenges to any society that arises out of religious affinity, ethnicity, beliefs and values. The challenges here is the political and social tension they create in the state. Politics is a matter of diplomacy, strategy and the pursuit of power, whereas religion entirely deals with the faith and beliefs of human beings. Religion is concerned with sacred things and emphasizes the purification of mind and body through a spiritual life built on honesty, truth and mental simplicity. Religion is concerned with sacred things and preaches for the purification of mind and body through spiritual life based on truth, honesty and simplicity of mind. Power and politics in relation to religion create so many challenges in the state in terms of administrating and governing power and authority, having the ability to corrupt man and to be dishonest. Religion and politics are two separate institutions having one's influence over the other, and it can be viewed in almost all the nation states. Many states practice secularism in their own ways in accordance with their needs and preferences. In this module, let us discuss the relationship between these three concepts in handling challenges with the following objectives. The objective 1 will be to enable the students to know what is fundamentalism. The second one will be to make the students understand communalism as a challenge to the society. Third one will be to explain the relationship between fundamentalism and communalism with secularism. To start with, we can see what is fundamentalism. The term fundamentalism is used to describe the ideology of religious or other social groups that requires obedience to the verbatim explanation of sermons, scriptures or beliefs and following them in every aspect of life. Fundamentalism developed as a reaction to forces that significantly change society, and it is intolerant of all types of change as well as resist it. In contemporary society, it is a recent phenomenon that mainly evolves as a resisting response to modernity and globalization. The yesteryear's governance had religion and politics together that went hand in hand, but the formation of nations after the Second World War had separated religion from politics and the state. The decoupling of politics and the government from religion was the main cause of fundamentalism. In all aspects of faith and doctrine, fundamentalism emphasizes the infallibility of scripture. We have scriptures like Bible, Qurans, the Gita and the Quran. It also opposes the idea that all faiths hold the same truth or that all religions should be one. The concept of fundamentalism had its birth in the ambit of Protestantism in the West. We can discuss this in terms of T.N. Madan. T.N. Madan, in his work, explained on fundamentalism. He dealt with, in his work on modern myths, locked minds, secularism and fundamentalism in India. He defined the concept of fundamentalism, selecting two fundamentalist movements, one from North American Protestant group movement and the second one is the Iranian Revolution of 1978-79. In the North American Protestant movement, biblical teaching and scientific knowledge were conflicting. As per the teachings of the Bible, the Orthodox Christians had to accept the Bible as scripture and regard it as a reliable or inerrant as well as transparent and needs no interpretation. The loyalty to the scripture was expressed and attacked the tracts of modernism rather than science. The fundamentalists' principal apprehension was to oppose modernist criticism of the Bible. By the mid-1920s, a World Christian Fundamentals Association was formed and the term fundamentalist was in use. But in the Western context, though there were fundamentalists, with the rapid phase of development in science, technology and industry, their supporters opted for a low profile as the others form a larger denomination. The religious and secular values in the American context were rekindled in 1960s and 70s with US Supreme Courts banning prayer in public schools and permitting abortion on demand. The basics of the faith also become a source of concern for conservative Catholics. The key ideas of American fundamentalism adapted by Madan are: first one is affirmation of the inspiration, final authority, inerrancy and transparency of scriptures as the source of belief, knowledge, morals and manners. The second one is recognition of the reactive character of fundamentalism. It is mainly a reaction to a perceived threat or crisis. And the third one is intolerance of dissent, implying monopoly over truth. These are the ideas taken by Madan from American context. Next, we can see the Iranian context. By the early 1960s, Iran, together with Egypt and Turkey, followed the path of modernization conceived in terms of nationalism, urbanization, westernization, etc. Secularization was also partially gaining importance, where the civil code of the state was mainly based on the Islamic holy book Sharia and the Shia ulama. These remained powerful in the country from the beginning of the 16th century. Rapid urbanization as a follow-up of modernization and westernization ensured. The stricken by the West, comprising the cultural critique and political revolt, was initiated by the social reformers and the religious revitalists. In 1979's revolution happened, where a pro-Western monarchy had been overthrown and an Islamic republic was established. Ayatollah Khomeini led the revolution to destroy the modern Iran, that is, the Shah and urban proprietor ruling class had tried to build. Khomeini authored the book Fundamentals of Islamic Thought in 1985, which served as the manifesto of revolution and challenged the modern secular scientific discourse. Along with the American fundamentalist key ideas, from Iranian context, Madan take four more ideas. The first one is cultural critique is the idea that all is not well with social or community life as lived at a particular time. The second one the Iranian idea gave is appeal to tradition but in a selective manner. The third one is capturing of political model and remodeling of the state for the achievement of the stated objectives. And the last one is charismatic leadership. Being orthodoxy, revitalist and cultural nationalist is considered to be the characteristics of fundamentalism. Apart from this, traditionalism and communalism are equated and particularly mixed up with fundamentalism. While discussing fundamentalism in the Indian context is known for the Indian population's mindset, which has the general traits of tolerance and universality. Though there are many religions, race, languages and varied cultural groups, the majority of Indians reject fundamentalism. At the grassroots level or the people's level, the nationalist movement was most inclusive, and the Indian Constitution personifies the values and principles of national movement. However, some of the 7 fundamentalist traits that we have discussed earlier from the Madan's idea described above are presented in Indian political system also. In India, both historically and currently, there have always been enclaves or pockets of fundamentalist groups among the Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs and Christians. In actuality, the Indian people have been subjected to irregular attacks from various forms of fundamentalism, particularly communalism, religious nationalism and terrorism, which are because of several reasons. But throughout the past 5 or 6 decades, these occurrences have been closely linked to democratization of Indian politics. This have included the introduction of significant amount of political power and everything that entails. Additionally, the idea of pan-Islamism, which manifests itself in movements like Tabligh, that is related to conversion, is the source of Islamic fundamentalism, which is in turn inspires Hindu extremism such as the Sudhi movement. During the 1980s, Sikh militancy was on the rise. The fundamentalism shown by the Sikhs is a reactive phenomenon. It is a defense mechanism where aggression is a cover for fear of, that is threatening the other, that is namely non-conformist Sikhs, secularists of all communities and communal Hindus, and as a certain process, notably heresy, modernization, cultural disintegration and political domination. This is mentioned by Madan in his work in 1998. Fundamentalists want every Sikh to have these worries and apprehensions. The threat they have ended in the demand of Khalistan, a distinct Sikh state, as well as the emergence of fundamentalism among a variety of Sikhs, Muslims and Hindus. These are evidence of the dread and anxiety that led to these demands. This is also manifest in the minds of the people as follows. Demand of some religious communities, notably Sikhs, for the recognition of their right to repudiate the separation of religion and politics in the conduct of their own community life. This is also once again mentioned by Madan in his work on religion and secularism. Now we can see about the concept of communalism. Communalism, the concept of communalism, shares some ideological components with fundamentalism. Both concepts challenge the idea that politics and the state should be kept apart from religion. Both reject the idea that all religions hold the same truth or that all religions may coexist peacefully. Communalism is frequently linked to the emergence of riots and violent outbursts, some of which may not have an apparent purpose or goal. A fundamentalist is typically communal in a multi-religious culture, but communalists are frequently not fundamentalists. As we have discussed earlier, fundamentalism places a strong emphasis on the authority and reliability of the sacred texts, whereas a strong commitment to one's own ethnic community rather than to society is known as communalism. The allegiance may be founded on racial, ethnic or religious consideration. When it comes to India, the faithfulness that leads to communalism is based on religion. Communalism uses violence generally motivated by hatred to assert its dominance. There is animosity, hostility and rivalry between religions and religious groupings in this situation. Communities have a collective mentality. Only under certain conditions does communalism become obvious, whereas fundamentalist movements are reactive and respond to the crisis which it addresses. When there are conflicts of interest, insecurities and suspicions within one or both groups, communalism develops. The core of communalism is antagonism, but the core of fundamentalism is the defense and the promotion of the original. For fundamentalists, achieving political power is of utmost importance, and for communalism is more in defending and protecting its own rights and convictions. Both communalism and fundamentalism have the common trait of action, but although communalists have a specific other, for fundamentalists it is more a case of us versus the rest, since the rest is a general other. Now we can see the causes of communalism in India as discussed by Shashank Malviya, which was presented in Times of India. In contemporary culture, communalism is a blind commitment to one's religious group. It is viewed as a methodology for or against agitating the populace by alluring communal services. Dogmatism and religious fanaticism are linked to communalism. Now we can see causes of communalism in India one by one. There are a variety of factors that are responsible for communalism's prevalence. Some of the main causes of communalism, as discussed by Shashank Malviya, is given below. To start with, tendency of minorities. In the country, Muslims are not assimilated comfortably with the mainstream. The majority of them feel that Muslim elites has not created the necessary national ethos and is uninterested in secular nationalist politics. The second one is the leaders' design. India's communalism has grown because both the Hindu and Muslim communalist leaders want it to grow for the benefit of their respective groups. The demand for separate voters and the establishment of the Muslim League was tangible manifest of this line of thought. The British rule, which gave rise to the divide and rule strategy and separated voters based on religion, established the foundation of communalism in India. In the end, the separation of nation into India and Pakistan fueled even more animosity between the two. The third one is obscurantism and orthodoxy. The minority of orthodox members consider themselves to be a distinct entity with unique cultural norms, rules of conduct and ways of thinking. The conservative and fundamentalist tendency among Muslims are very strong. Such feelings have dissuaded them from accepting the idea of secularism and religious freedom. And the next factor is economic backwardness. Another cause is economic backwardness. In India, the majority of Muslims were not opting for their courses in technology and sciences. Apart from this, their representation and participation in public service, manufacturing, trade and so on are also limited on par with most of the population. The lack of participation is mainly because of their educational status and which is really backward in nature. The seeds of communalism are sown in these feelings which bring forth sense of relativity, that is, they are deprived from the rest of the people. Next comes the geographical factors. Different religious communities, particularly Hindus, Muslims and Christians, are living in different territorial settlements with different ways of life, social norms and belief systems. These variations in terms of settlement models are contrary and have the possibility of causing conflicts between the cultures. Next comes the historical factors. In India, due to caste-based prejudice and restrictions and the force that had been imposed by Muslim rulers, conversions towards Islam from Hinduism happened. Since at the international level too, much power had never been shared with these converted Muslims. The problem of social segregation and alphabetic and poverty that defined the low caste citizens are still unresolved. The conversion of Indians put an end to their job, and the converts began with the masters copying of mind, speech and dressings. Their hostility was brought on by it. The triggered estrangement gradually penetrated the components of communalism in the Muslim community. The separatist forces in the Muslim community banned outsiders from interacting with their group right from the start of the national revival. This aided in the formation of the Muslim League, which compelled the division of the nation. Next comes the social factor. The social factor is another aspect that facilitates communalism in India. The commonality in culture have a significant role in fostering positive relationships between two different socio-economic classes. Hindus and Muslims follow different and varied cultural practices and traditions. Their social institutions like marriage, family, religion, economy, governing, etc. are entirely different from each other, which creates a feel of two separate groups. Because of this separated idea, there is a chance for communalistic idea creeping in. Next comes the psychological factors. Psychological factors plays a significant role in the growth of communalism. There were set of beliefs in the minds of the people, mainly out of the stereotypical prejudice of the people, like the Hindus believe Muslims are the extremists and fanatical. They too have faith that Muslims lack patriotism as well. Muslims, on the other hand, think that Indians perceive them as inferior and less pious. These feelings contribute to the adversity of both the groups. Next comes one of the important component, that provocation of the enemy countries. Communalism is also triggered by outsiders too. By using their operatives to pit one group against another, certain foreign nations want to destabilize the nation. The common sentiments among the Muslims in the nation have been greatly influenced by Pakistan. Pakistan has enabled and encouraged communal unrest between different ethnic groups by encouraging the radical elements of the Indian Muslim population. For instance, in Kashmir, young people are being taught and trained by external agencies not to view India as their nation, and thereby undermining India's national internal security. Now we can see the next one, that is the role of media. In the era of information revolution, the messages relating to communal tension or riot in any part of the country spread as fast as light and sound. Through the mass media as well as social media, information on communal unrest is taken throughout the world, and which consequently has an impact on society. This can fuel and lead to more conflict and riots even after the things happen. Up to this point in the session, we have talked about two significant ideas, fundamentalism and communalism, that are connected to the two primary societal institutions such as politics and religion, and that affect practically every country. Both concepts, because of their nature, have a risk to the society's unity and integration. It is true in the Indian context too, where the unity of the Indian people is under imminent threat from fundamentalism and communalism. India's constitution includes the phrase of secularism as a result of the nation's citizens becoming more divided, unsatisfied and discriminated against, which pose a threat to the nation's unity and integrity. Now we can see in elaborate about secularism. Secularism is seen as a palliative solution to fundamentalism and communalism, which are both widely believed to be harmful and destabilizing ideologies to the society. As we have discussed already in the earlier sessions, secularization, secularity and secularism are multivocal words. Madan explains these three concepts as follows. Secularization ordinarily refers to socio-cultural processes that enlarge the areas of life, that is material, institutional and intellectual, in which the role of the sacred is progressively remitted. Then he explains the concept of secularity as secularity is the resultant state of social being. And the third, he explains the concept of secularism as an ideology that argues the historical inevitability and progressive nature of secularization everywhere. In modern India, the terms secularism and secularization are closely related, yet they are also subject of criticism because different authors, philosophers, politicians and other figures have diverse definitions of what they mean. At the time of Constitution's implementation in 1950, the term secularism was not included in the Indian Constitution. A place was opened for the inclusion of secularism in the Constitution as a result of growth and development of disagreement, discontent, discrimination and prejudice among the populace in the name of religion, region, language, community and other factors. With the passage of the 42nd Amendment to the Indian Constitution on December 18, 1976, the concepts of secularism and socialism were introduced into the Constitution. In the words of Anamika Das, India is a secular state, and in the preamble of the Constitution, it has been mentioned that India is a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic that is based on the principle of justice, liberty and equality and fraternity. For strengthening national integration in a country like India, the principle of justice, liberty, equality and fraternity should be maintained within the territory of India, which is closely related to the principle of secularism. Secularism in the Western context emphasizes the division or separation of religion from the state. That is, neither the state nor religion may interfere with one another's internal matters. To put it in the another way, neither the state nor religion is allowed to meddle in matters of each other. Whereas in the Indian context, the secularism of India differs significantly from that of West. Indian secularism places a strong emphasis on interreligious harmony and interreligious dominance in addition to stressing the separation of religion and the state. The secularism of India gives each facet of religion equal respect and permits the state to intervene doctrinally in many religions. The word secularism has variety of connotations in India. As Madan notes these dimensions as follows: the separation of state from religion, giving equal and impartial treatment of all communities by the state, approaching religious beliefs in a spirit of objective rationality, ensuring a just standard of living for all people irrespective of communities. Now we can see the secular views, fundamentalism and communism can be restrained by using the ideology of secularism wisely. Three perspectives might be offered on how secularism can fight fundamentalism and communalism. They are: it is possible to decommunalize people at all levels by waging an ideological war against communalism. This strategy is justified by the idea that communalism won't disappear until the community ideology is eradicated. Along with the focus on democratic rights, grassroots politics is one more strategy for destroying communalism. What this means is that there has to be a grassroots awakening. Second, a brand, that is within this grassroots awakening, there should be a brand new activity that is politically motivated but not of the grassroots variety is needed. However, the issue is that we don't believe this grassroots strategy is likely to succeed until it has spread throughout all of the India and unity within it. Then the third point is religion is a significant problem for fundamentalism, communalism and secularism. From a secular perspective, how should we treat religion? First and foremost, we should refrain from demeaning or declaring any religions to be false. The democratic and secular should be sought out in the social foundation of religion according to the second point. Thirdly, a logical method should be used while exposing the irrationalities of religion. So, logic should be used. Now, we can see what are the threats and challenges on secular practices. Given that India is a secular society, many religious concerns and practices poses a threat to the integrity of the state. The Indian Constitution, for instance, states that untouchability is a sin that should be abolished and that the principle of equality should be kept without any discrimination based on caste, creed, religion, color, gender, etc. However, in reality, practically all political parties use religion, caste and language as a powerful tool in order to further their political ambition and build a support base. For the need for the vote bank, these practices are sustained. These elements have emerged as a primary dangers and obstacles to the advancement of national integration and secular practices. Several factors or threats to secular practice and national integration, and secular factors or threats to secular practice and national integration, and we can see some that are being discussed by Anamika Das. They are linguistic diversity, socio-cultural diversity, religious diversity, geographical diversity, regionalism, economic inequality, unequal development, casteism, communalism, insurgency, terrorism, autonomy movements and demand for self-determination. Even though our constitution comprises of many provisions to stop communal violence, communal rights and extreme sense of regionalism, movements for autonomy and self-determination, terrorism, language politics, caste politics, religious fanaticism, student unrest, etc. are consistently seen as threats to existence and growth of secularism, as well as maintaining national integration. There is a need for strengthening secularism, thereby eliminating the effects of communalism. Some Indian thinkers have provided suggestions for it. We can see some of them. Bipan Chandra suggested that social movements as the way to strengthen secularism. If there are so many social movements, we can strengthen secularism. Whereas Dipankar Gupta suggested a proper spread of education by increasing the mutual exchange of views between different communities, which can remove the communalism. Then comes the role of media. Role of media plays a crucial role in spread of communal feelings. On the other hand, it can also strengthen the secular aspects of the state. Mass media in general and social media in recent years play a key role in building strong unity among the people, confronting all possible challenges on the way of maintaining secularism. Then, an important component is political leaders. Political leaders should keep themselves away from being provocative to certain groups of people in order to increase the support of their party in the name of a vote bank. Promoting secularism can be done by properly regulating laws like those governing disaster management. The role of think tanks also can promote secularism, where the ideas of social reformers, thought leaders, educators, etc. are taken into consideration for strengthening egalitarian laws based on modernity. Any type of equality in society can be created. Uniform civil code can also strengthen secularism. Thereby, national unity of the nation can be maintained. We are in the last part of the presentation. To sum up, in this model, we understand the meaning of the concepts of fundamentalism and communalism. Its specificity in the Indian context is also discussed, and how they impact the Indian nation is also deliberated. Further, the model ponders over the idea of secularism and how it be a tool to overcome fundamentalism and communalism. The threats before secularism are also seen, and the suggestions to overcome those threats are also dealt with. Thank you.